My name is David Swinowski from Rubble Road Soapstone, and I'm going to show you how you can use soapstone carving in your classroom here today. So with Rubble Road, I will be giving you a soapstone silhouette of a basic shape. You will be using steel tools called rasps to do your shaping on your soapstone bear. With the rasps, we're going to be using those primarily in a pushing motion. Back and forth will work very well. Side to side is not nearly as effective, so try and make sure you're using your rasps effectively to shape your stone. As you can see, with stone carving, there is a little bit of dust in there, so in the classroom, I like to incorporate a bucket of water, simple dish tub, dipping your stone while you are scrubbing and carving into that rock will help minimize the mess that you're making in your classroom. This will also make cleanup a lot easier at the end of the class as well. So students will be using the steel tools provided to put their shaping into the stone. Constant pressure, constant contact. Most of the school shapes that we provide are two-dimensional. I like to put my dimensions on one side. I will leave the other side plain, just to help with the class, makes it a little bit speedier as well. So you will notice as I'm carving, shaping the rock, it does create some dust here. I like to get the students to constantly rinse as they're carving. This makes it a little bit easier. You can also kind of see where you have been carving as you rinse it off. Helps you visually see where you're at in your carving during this time. With the rasps as well, when you're making your grooves of definition, you want to make sure you're not just making a light groove in that stone. You want to make sure you're going fairly deep into that stone. And the main reason is that once we have used the rasps and we've carved our definition into our stone, for example, with this bear, we're going to put in the waistline, a neckline, and just narrowing the nose. 3 simple steps that add a lot of depth and dimension to this stone. Very easy to do, rounding off some of the corner edges just so it's not square and blocky, but it's still going to leave little rasp marks on this stone, a bit of texture on there. We use the 3 stages of sandpaper to get rid of the texture on that stone. Okay, we can smooth it out, bring out the color and the pattern in that rock. We're going to start off with a 100 grit sandpaper to a 320 grit and finish off with a 600 grit. The most important sandpaper that students will be using is sandpaper number 1. This is the one that sets up the stone for the other 2 to finish off the rock. What's going to happen is sandpaper number 1 will get rid of the deeper scratches from the rasps, but still leave little scratches behind. That's okay. That's what sandpaper number 2 is for. Stone carving is a process. It's not one thing that's going to actually smooth out this rock. In this case, because the rock is so soft, it's only 3 stages. That's it. What happens there is all 3 sandpapers will smooth out that rock, bring out the color, any grain or pattern in this stone as well, which is lovely to see. When we have finished sanding our stone, we have all the scratches that we don't want to see gone. We rinse this off in clean water, and then we let that dry before we oil it. Because oil and water don't mix, we want to make sure we have a nice, clean, non-dusty surface for actually oiling that stone. It's great to have a water source like a sink in your classroom, not mandatory, but it is great to have. The water in the bucket, you don't need a lot, only a couple inches, just enough to rinse off your soapstone. That's all you really require. When you are sanding, as I was saying, the first sandpaper is the most important. One of the things you want to remember after the first sandpaper, with the final 2, try not to rub your soapstone on the bottom of your bucket, because sandpaper number 1 is going to be leaving little bits of grit on the bottom of your bucket, and these little bits of grit can still put little scratches back into your stone. So for sandpaper 2 and 3, I want to make sure I'm just dipping or rinsing my rock and not scrubbing it on the bottom of my bucket. This will help you get a better finish on your stone for your end product. The reason I rinse it in clean water when I'm done is because of the dust that's in the water here. We want to make sure we get all those little dust particles off of your stone before we set that to dry prior to the oiling that you're going to have with that kit as well. What happens if your student should accidentally drop or break their soapstone? Breaks are going to happen in stone carving. It's just part of the game. Simple super glue. It's all you need. Let that stone dry. Use the super glue. Glue those broken pieces back together. Let that glue cure. They can continue carving and sanding away as well. So make sure you're working diligently, being aware of the tools and how they're creating that dust. If you're not seeing that dust when you're scrubbing, you might want to change the way that you're carving that stone. You should see a little bit of that dust every single time. Constant pressure, constant contact. If you have students carving the same project in your classroom, a great way to differentiate or identify your own soapstone carving is by putting your initials on the very bottoms of the feet. You can use your rasp like a pen or a pencil if you like to help identify your soapstone. You could also use it if you want to maybe scratch in some of your identifying marks or details into your stone so you can visually see them before you even start to carve. Something I like to do every once in a while. Rounding off edges, corners. Always rinsing. That way I can effectively see where I am at in my stone carving. Let's see, for the tools in the classroom with the rasps that we provide, sometimes you will notice some rasps are wide, some rasps are narrow. Narrow tools are great for making narrow grooves in your stone. Wider rasps are great when I want to remove a lot of stone. It's easier to remove more stone with a wider rasp. The more teeth that I have effectively working that stone, the more rock I'm going to get rid of every single time I scrub away. When I'm using the narrow tools, I always start with the rasp towards my body. I'm pointing away from myself so that when I push, every single time I push, I'm making that groove a little bit deeper. I'm not pushing towards myself. I don't want to poke myself in the hand or maybe scrape myself in the knuckle. You do need to be aware when using these tools as well so that you're not poking yourself also. You can easily change the stone around in your hand. With some classrooms, we do like to have paper towel nearby. For some of the smaller students, they can effectively put that soapstone on the paper towel and scrub on the side of the table if they like, or a rag. Either one works just as well. So that they can kind of see, once they start to build up some dust, they can always rinse it off, let that water drop in the bucket, and then go back to carving, if that makes it a little bit easier for them as well. You're all finished with your carving. All the students have done their carving. They have sanded it. They are waiting to dry so that it can be oiled. When I'm finished carving, I'm done with all my water. I like to just, if I haven't been carving a lot of stone, I can just dump it down the drain. If you have access to outside, you can also dump it out in the yard. You can also swirl up any dust in there to get it suspended in the water, flushing that as well down a toilet or down a janitorial sink works very well. So now that we have finished our carving, we've let that dry. I like to let it dry overnight. That way I know it's completely dry all the way through. I can begin the oiling process. Oil is here in a container. Most schools, I just give you a bulk container of oil. You can pour that oil onto a rag and handle the piece, but it's the oil that's going to actually bring out that color in your stone that you probably saw and noticed when you were doing your third sanding. So with the oil, we just need to give it a light, liberal coating all over the stone. You notice that this will be bringing out that color again. When I've oiled my stone and I have it completely covered in that oil, I like to let that sit for one day, just to kind of let that oil permeate. The next day, I'll wipe off any excess oil with a cloth or a paper towel. And then I have a finished soapstone carving. Students can take that home, a lasting art piece for their parents to be proud of and for the students to be proud of as well. And as always, if teachers have any questions regarding our product or the use of it or any troubleshooting, we're always by our website at Rubble Road Soapstone Kits. You can reach us there, rubbleroadsoapstone@gmail.com. You can always write us, call us, and we'll do our best to help you and your class fulfill your soapstone carving needs. Using Rubble Road Soapstone Kits in your classroom. If you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out and contact us online, or you can check out our Facebook site or our Instagram site as well for inspiration in your classroom. Thank you very much.